Hello and welcome to another MovieBoozer.com virtual pubcast. I'm your host, Ken Eckman, and I'm joined by Hawk Ripjaw this week, and only Hawk Ripjaw.
Hi.
And this episode we're going to run through a little bit quicker, just because we had some technical difficulties and we're running shorter on time. But we have quite a bit to talk about, though. Most notably, this weekend's major release, Fate of the Furious, which you saw, Hawk. Tell us about that.
The Fate of the Furious is the 8th Fast and Furious movie. And, of course, they're getting a little more creative with their titles now. I mean, there was Fast 5, and there's the kind of boring Fast and Furious 6 title-wise. The movie was kind of awesome. And then Furious 7, and now this one's going to be Fast and the Furious 8. And I think when they announced that title, everybody kind of suspected, like, they're not just going to call it that, are they? No, it's the Fate of the Furious, which will be the beginning of the final Fast and Furious trilogy.
Okay.
And you snort, but each of these segmented trios of movies do have sort of their own self-contained theme, if that makes sense.
Yes,
it's very interesting explaining this franchise to an outsider or a non-fan, because people that enjoy the movies just kind of understand it as a given thing. But the movies themselves, they actually do have a very, very tightly constructed lore, as it were. Like these movies actually feed into each other in really interesting ways. So in this one, the 8th film, this is after Paul Walker has died, and so his character has been retired from the film. Like, they didn't kill him off in Furious 7, obviously. The film ended with the two of them going their separate ways, which a lot of people felt was a very, very poignant, very touching send-off for Walker. In this one, Dominic Toretto, Vin Diesel's character, has gone rogue, and he's the antagonist of the film, or one of them. And he does this because he's blackmailed by Charlize Theron's character, who is a mega hacker named Cypher. Of course she is. And the team has to team up against him once more, and then they actually, interestingly, take the antagonist from the last movie, Jason Statham, and they join forces with him to take down Toretto and Cypher. The biggest problem I had with this film is that they never really organically explained why Jason Statham is helping them and why he's apparently just part of the team now, given that he was the main antagonist of the last film and murdered one of the characters from the previous one.
Well, it's the classic Godzilla, Godzilla versus Mothra kind of thing. It's, he's the villain, but then he's the good guy in later films, and it just happens because it's convenient.
So I'm going to come right out and say there's going to be spoilers when I talk about this. So if you're listening, why are you doing that before you see the movie? And Ken, I know you don't care, right?
Not at all.
So so this is kind of where the lore of the movies comes into play. In the 4th movie, Michelle Rodriguez's character, Letty, she was killed by the bad guy. In the 6th film, in the 6th film, it was revealed that she was not actually killed. She was her death was faked, and then she has amnesia and is working with the bad guy. And then she gets her memory back. And it turns out that Toretto was dating a police officer in the time between Letty, quote unquote, dying and her coming back, and he fathered a child with her. And Cypher is able to convince him to join her and help her do all her nefarious things by threatening to murder the child. So again, it's kind of interesting. What?
As that
it escalated quickly, right?
So Vin Diesel's threatening to murder a child?
No, Charlize Theron is threatening to murder a child.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She's like, hey, Vin Diesel, I have this girl you banged and your son, and they're both going to die if you don't help me do the things I want to do.
Oh, okay.
And he, for some reason, doesn't tell the team why. He could have just been like, oh, family, she's trying to get me to do my stuff. Or that's kind of how Vin Diesel talks. I can't go as low as he can. But then so they take Jason Statham's character to help them out. Now that this leads to a climax in one of the most entertaining sequences in the entire franchise. It's very much reminiscent of Shoot 'Em Up with Clive Owen, but on the plane where Cypher's base of operations is, Jason Statham's character gets on there and he gets the baby in its little carrier and kills more bad guys than the rest of the movie combined while carrying this baby around in his carrier. So that was a really fun scene. Like at one point, this guy shoots at him, and he tells the baby, he's like, "Oh, you don't want to see this." So he turns the carrier around, and the baby's like listening to its music on the headphones, while in the background, Jason Statham is mercilessly beating the shit out of this bad guy that shot at him. And then he sniffs, like, "Was that you or him?" And he leans into the baby and sniffs, like, "Oh no, that was him." So the movie knows how to have fun too. But again, there's such a turnaround. He's like having fun with the baby, and it's a really goofy scene. And it's such a turnaround from the ending of Fast and Furious 6, where in the epilogue of that movie, he straight up murders one of the main characters from the rest of the franchise. And that sets up Furious 7's revenge plot. So like you said, it's kind of like the Godzilla thing, but they didn't explain it in a really interesting way. Although the screenwriter, he's like, "Oh, you'll find out in later movies. There's more layers to this, and you'll find out more about his character and why he is the way he is." I was like, "You know what, Chris Morgan, I trust you, because at one point last week you said that you would take the franchise into space if the idea was quote unquote so good. So I trust that this guy knows what he's doing."
I have no doubt that this show is going to end in space.
Neither do I.
Yeah, it's going to. I mean, that just has to be.
Someone online suggested that this should end with a Riddick crossover.
I would say a Leprechaun crossover would be my preference.
Well, I mean,
Fast and Furious in the Hood or something.
Yeah, is he in the Leprechaun though?
What's that?
Vin Diesel's not in Leprechaun, is he?
No, he's not in Leprechaun.
Okay, yeah. The reason somebody suggested Riddick is because Dominic Toretto turns into Riddick.
Oh,
because he's also played by Vin Diesel.
He would have to get blinded, so that would be an interesting plot twist. Since he's supposed to be a driver, that would be, kind of the
exactly. So the action of the movie is really good. It didn't seem like there was as much action as there was in like Furious 7 and Fast and Furious 6. And it seemed like there's a little more CGI than usual. This is a series that prides itself on practical effects. I mean, in Furious 7, the cars drive out of an airplane and parachute to the ground, and that was done 100% practical effects, which was awesome. In this one, there's a sequence where Charlize Theron hacks into every single automated car. Well, I say automated, but every single car that has an onboard computer in the entire city of New York, and has them racing down the street, like hundreds of them, and smashing into stuff. That's how
onboard computers work.
It's what?
That's how onboard computers work.
There's a pretty fucking stupid scene. Like, how hacking is in TV shows and movies, right? Where it's like the better hacker is the one that types faster. They totally have that scene in this movie. Like, oh, blocking me out. It's like, oh, I've been overridden. It's like, it's like, oh, you bitch, you're smarter than I thought. And then, so it's literally a smash cuts between the two hackers, like who can override more shit faster and win the day in Siberia, Russia. So one more thing to add before I elaborate anymore is that I went to go see this in the theater on Easter Sunday evening, and the lady that was next to me in her 40s had started to celebrate Easter early because she was one of two things: either piss-ass drunk or high off her gourd.
Maybe both.
She came in a little bit late, right? And she sat down next to me, and this theater has those really nice leather reclining seats. You press the button and it just mechanically reclines. Because it's like this leather vinyl, it makes this when it's going. So again, this lady's in her 40s, thought that fart sound was the funniest goddamn thing she ever heard in her life. And started laughing uncontrollably. She left the theater a couple times to get food or do whatever she was going to do. One time came back with popcorn and tried to offer some to me. A complete stranger sitting next to her.
That's creepy.
Yeah, she's like, "Do you want some popcorn?" And like shook it in my face. I was like, "No, I'm good, thank you." And then during the finale, which is you've seen it in the trailers, the cars going across the ice and then the submarine breaching the ice and chasing them.
Yeah.
A sequence that is filled to the absolute brim with explosions and wrecks and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Every time that happened, she would like scream like a 12-year-old girl, be like, "Whoa!" and then turn to me and be like, "I'm sorry, I'm being so loud." So it didn't bug me. I thought it was pretty funny. It actually made me really happy to see somebody a little bit older having so much fun with something so stupid. So it was kind of heartwarming. But yeah, just some. Do you have any last minute questions about the franchise as an outsider? I know I kind of just threw out a whole bunch of just random thoughts on it.
So pretty much everyone who's still around from the previous franchise installments are in this. I know Kurt Russell showed up in the trailer and stuff like that.
Yeah, Kurt Russell's great. Oh, you know who else is in this movie? Helen Mirren. Helen Mirren's in this movie. And one of her funniest lines is she actually plays Jason Statham's character's mom.
Okay.
And at one point they do she does kind of coerce him into helping the team. So that kind of explains why he was doing what he was doing, but it's more the personality change that didn't work for me. But in any case, there's a tool called the God's Eye, which was the MacGuffin of Furious 7, and it can find anybody in the world. So it's like a super powerful satellite. And she's like, at one point, she's like, "Oh, he had this device called the Devil's Bumhole or something like that." And hearing Helen Mirren say the Devil's Bumhole was easily worth the price of admission alone, I think. What else?
You know what? I will be perfectly honest. I don't mean to be disconnected or anything. It's just I have no investment in the series. I've seen the one. I believe it was the 6th one, and that didn't inspire me.
Oh, you saw Fast and Furious 6?
Yeah, I think that's the only one I ever saw. That's the one with the insanely long airplane runway scene, right?
Yes, a sequence which I love so much, and also a great gauge of how much you'll connect with the rest of the franchise. I would say maybe if you're bored, put on Fast 5, which is widely regarded as the best one in the series.
What the fuck is happening? Oh. Sorry about that weird sound. I had another laptop booting up in the background, and it automatically opened Google Chrome and started playing a commercial.
Interesting. A little creepy. But yeah,
I'm sorry. You were saying I lost my train.
If Fast and Furious 6 didn't do anything for you, then this franchise will not. Like Paul Walker's thing in Furious 7 was so emotional because of people that have been invested with his character over the previous handful of movies. Mm-hmm. And this is a series that, with every new film, leans more heavily into how stupid it is, and does so with a very big smile on its face. So it's like Transformers, which tries to have its cake and eat its too, with like explosions and human elements and drama. You know what? I say that, but the Furious franchise does all those things and well. But it feels more passionate. It's got soul. It's really fun, and I don't know. It's not as good as it's probably one of the ones that I enjoyed less out of 5 through 7. But it's still, for fans of the franchise, it's still a great continuation of the series. And we're getting Fast and Furious 9 in 2019 and 10 in 2021. So, and that should be the definitive end of the franchise. So that's all I have to say on that.
All right. Well, with that said, we'll go ahead then and move on to a movie that I saw this weekend on VOD, Salt and Fire, the latest dramatic presentation by Werner Herzog.
Oh, cool. Is that? Oh, I don't like that. Oh, wow. Oh my goodness. I just looked at some reviews.
I am like, if there's anyone who you could honestly call a massive fan of Werner Herzog, it's me. I own a ton of his movies. I have both the Werner Herzog collection and the one with all of his Klaus Kinski collaborations. I own a bunch of his documentaries. I think he's one of the great filmmakers of all time, and perhaps Germany's greatest filmmaker.
I feel like you're about to break my heart here because I'm looking at this movie. Not only did he direct it, it's got Michael Shannon and Gael Garcia Bernal.
Yeah.
Oh man! All right. Well,
this is. I'm going to spit it out. This is easily his worst film of his entire career.
Wow. And
he's not without his failures. There are some films he's done in the past that haven't worked, but this movie is it takes being a bad movie to an insane level of detail, to the point where it almost feels calculated in being so incredibly pretentious and awful and preachy and over. Just wow, it's bad.
So what is it about?
All right, so the movie opens up as a couple of ecologists, one played by German actress Veronica Ferris and Gael Garcia Bernal. They're being sent to a unnamed South American country, although it's Bolivia, because this movie was shot entirely in Bolivia and takes place in locations that are well known within Bolivia. So they're sent to Bolivia as part of a UN delegation to investigate an ecological disaster. Okay. And they problem one, the first hour, or well, not hour, probably 45 minutes of the movie references this ecological disaster numerous times without going into even the most minute detail as to what this disaster is. Okay. And when they finally reveal what it is, it's a explanation that it's stupid. Basically, what happened is Michael Shannon is the person who owns this. He's the CEO of this company that was responsible for basically creating a gigantic salt flat and basically draining a huge lake. And the thing is, underneath the salt flat is a super volcano that is showing signs of erupting, and which, of course, is a much worse disaster. And that plays almost nothing into the plot. So Michael Shannon kidnaps them, along with this third guy who I have no idea who his name is as an actor, but he's terrible.
Let me see. I've got it.
Dr. Arnold Meyer, played by Volker Mikulowski, I think it is. He's terrible in this. It may have been just the dialogue, because the dialogue in this movie is insanely bad on the level of Neil Breen.
Ooh.
In fact,
Herzog wrote this too, didn't he?
He did write the screenplay. It's based on a short story by Tom Bissell, who is notable only in for what he's really known for is what his writing he's actually done for video games.
So this actor, I don't want to say his name. I'm pretty sure you're saying it wrong. I don't want to also fuck it up.
Yeah.
He was in Inglourious Bastards.
Uh-huh.
He was in the Grand Budapest Hotel.
He's probably a German actor.
He was in The Lives of Others. Like apparently hopefully this is an outlier, because I never picked up any bad performances in either of those films.
Well, first of all, I'm just going to say this. Neither Veronica Ferris nor Michael Shannon nor Gael Garcia Bernal deliver much of a performance either in this movie. They look fucking... Well, actually, Shannon is probably the one who deals with the poor scripting the best. His main thing about his character is being menacing at first and slowly unveiling layers of his personality that he's less of a villain than you think he is, and that's sort of his arc as a character, and he does I would say a workable job with that. Everyone else just looks fucking lost.
So for a movie, I'm sorry, for a director like Werner Herzog, who creates such insightful, interesting, passionate movies, what do you think happened?
Well, there is a ecological message that this movie is trying to convey. The problem is Herzog kind of nailed the same message in his film last year, Into the Inferno, in a far more potent way, and and he kind of attempted a similar material here. I don't think there's any there's no mistaking the similarities in that a super volcano plays into the plot of this movie, and Into the Inferno is about volcanoes.
Okay.
But I will say that this movie, first of all, features almost no volcanic aspects. There's this lengthy sequence in a salt flat where what happens. Let me just give this away because this. I mean,
I'm not going to see it. I will not. I refuse to have my heart broken like yours was with Herzog.
Actually, you're going to miss out though, because I'm going to recommend that you see this, if only because it is a perfect example of the kind of hilarious failure that a genius can create. I found myself laughing heartily throughout this thing. And when I wasn't laughing, it was almost a Neil Breen kind of experience where I was trying to figure out what anyone making this film was thinking during the production. I was truly baffled.
Okay.
So I'm going to recommend you see it. As much as Herzog disappointed me with this movie, there's something to be said for the insanity behind it.
So with you revealing it, will that damage the novelty aspect of it, or will it just
not at
entice
all.
me more? Okay.
Not at all. There's this lengthy sequence in which Herzog, in fact, I'll even conceal one aspect of it just for your own edification. There's a sequence where Michael Shannon basically takes Veronica Ferris and removes her from his own facility and takes her out into the middle of this giant salt flat and abandons her there with these two blind children.
The fuck?
And like a week's supply of food and water. And there's no explanation. He just does that. And the movie, just for the next half hour, this movie just changes its tone completely into like a survival film, where Veronica Ferris starts like describing the wonders and the desperate situation she's going through and dealing with handling these two blind children, and it makes no sense. And when you find out the reason that Michael Shannon brought her there, I'm not going to give that away, because that is the moment where I burst out openly. I was sitting alone watching this movie in my room, and I burst out laughing so loudly that the room shook. Like, it was it was the most maddeningly stupid explanation for something, especially given the fact that Michael Shannon ultimately, while he's technically the villain who created this disaster, I'll just say this much: his reasons for abducting Veronica Ferris and Gail Garcia Bernal and the other scientist guy turn out to be completely pointless, because they were going to do what he was wanting them to do anyway, just not hard enough, I guess.
That sounds like a very interesting failure that I would be totally down with watching.
It's insane. Truly insane. Now, by the way, the person who wrote the short story this is based on, as far as I can tell, he's never made another film, but he has written he's been credited as a writer on numerous video games, such as Gears of War 4, The Witness, Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, Tale from the Borderlands, Battlefield Hardline, Batman Arkham Origins, Gears of War Judgment.
That's interesting, because
these are like all top class, like AAA titles
with caveats. Uncharted 4 had a great story. Arkham Origins also had one of the best stories of the franchise, which a lot of people disagree with me, but I don't know.
I'm not judging the games
Hardline
themselves. I'm just talking about the the fact that he's a credited writer on all of these.
I know. I'm just I'm kind of pointing out the quality of each one in respect to
Sure,
how that affects the book. The other ones, I know a couple of them. The Witness is an incredible game that actually, you know what? I can talk about this off air with you, but The Witness is a game you should absolutely check out, Ken. It's a puzzle game.
I'm familiar with The Witness.
Oh, are you? Okay, good.
Yeah.
And then Battlefield Hardline is a really fucking stupid police procedural movie. It's fun, or movie game. It's fun, but we'll give it a couple minutes.
Why isn't this stopping? Stop!
Turn it off!
Stop!
Turn it off!
No!
Turn it off!
It won't stop. Okay, it stopped.
Okay.
I was seriously hitting pause over and over again, and it just kept going.
All I'll say about Battlefield Hardline is somebody watched way the fuck too much CSI Miami.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's the how all of these got created. It's like Uncharted 4 is like, Uncharted is kind of like a modern day Indiana Jones sort of thing,
right?
So, and Gears of War, of course, very alien sci-fi. So, well, anyway, he also wrote apparently the script for the Yar's Revenge 2011 game, which is
now that game fucking sucked.
But anyway, long story short, this is a movie that should, in all rights, have been very. I mean, it has everything you would want from a Herzog, including his cinematographer Peter Zeitlinger, and there are he manages some very good shots. And ultimately, it feels like this movie was an excuse for Herzog to take another trip to South America, which is fine. I mean, he's made some of his best films in South America, just not this one. I will say, though, Herzog is still, because this was a 2016 release, he is still 2 for 3 in 2016. So that's not a bad, that's not a bad record to keep.
What were the other ones? It was Queen of the Desert, and what else?
Queen of the Desert technically is 2015.
Oh, is that okay?
And I would call that movie, that actually also, that one's not a hilarious failure. I would call it it's a mediocre movie.
That was a movie where I was watching it. I didn't watch all of it, but I watched it and I was like, why did Werner Herzog direct this? Yeah,
it might have very well have been to take a trip.
Yeah. Oh man, I sure hope he's not turning into a European director version of Adam Sandler.
Well, he is still making very pointed documentaries. Last year he released, to answer your question, his other films last year were Lo and Behold, Reveries of the Connected World.
Okay.
And Into the Inferno.
That's right, Into the Inferno, yeah.
Yeah, now Into the Inferno is his best one. Lo and Behold is a fascinating film too, though, because it's Herzog's idea of basically the internet generation. I don't necessarily agree with all of his points in it, but it's a compelling film nonetheless. And I will say that also in 2009, when he put out Bad Lieutenant Port of Call New Orleans, he also did a Michael Shannon collaboration, My Son, What Have Ye Done? That was
weird.
It's one of his more controversial films. Personally, I enjoyed it. I would not say it's necessarily a great film, but it's got it's got something about it that just creeps up on me and just feels.
I got bored here and there, but it's really an interesting movie.
His performance is what carries it through. And
yes,
it really the thing about Herzog is some of his films that aren't necessarily great movies work from a perspective of just being fucking strange. Heart of Glass, for instance, I've mentioned a few times on this podcast, is a film based heavily on Bavarian myths, and the entire cast of the film, except for one character, Herzog had through the entire film placed under hypnosis.
I remember that.
Yeah. That movie is just it's baffling and weird, but something about it. Plus, it's hypnotic as hell because between the hypnosis of the characters and the beautiful scenery and cinematography, and the music by the ambient group Popol Vuh, that's something. Actually, you know what? If you're in a mood for just getting chill, Hawk, that may be something for you to watch while under a certain influence.
Yeah.
All right.
Bad idea, actually.
It may put you to sleep, so you might want to be careful with that.
If I smoke the right stuff, it won't.
All right, fair enough. No experience, but we're going to go ahead and move on now to a movie called The Void.
Yes.
Should you avoid The Void?
This is from a pair of directors who have previously made. They're Canadian. They previously made kind of riffs on genres before, and I can't remember their other two films. One of them I saw and really liked, and I can't remember what it's called, and the other one I did not see but heard great things about. This one is a kickstarted, straightforward cosmic horror movie.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Very much borrowing elements of quite a few different horror films that I'll get into this later, but elements of body horror right out of The Thing. It uses a lot of Lucio Fulci style gore effects. It has and the story structure, which especially towards the end starts breaking down in continuity and becoming more dreamlike. Very very Fulci, and then there is a great deal of influence in one particular scene from Michael Mann's The Keep, which is a movie that nobody has fucking seen except for me.
And you know what? You warned me the hell away from that movie, but damn it, I really want to see the whole thing.
Yeah, here's the thing about The Keep. You will watch it and you will think probably the first 20 minutes of the movie, you'll be like, this is a fascinating setup. What are we headed towards? And it's just going to break you down over time. You know what? Did you watch that video I sent you that was like editing just scenes from the movie?
Yeah, I watched that and I was like, this is kind of cool. Then I watched the trailer and I was like, I am starting to think that maybe this isn't as cool as that edited video with the Tangerine Dream soundtrack.
Oh, well, the good thing about that movie is the entire film is just completely filled with Tangerine Dream.
And I really love films that have that kind of soundtrack, that really dark synth. It's part of what I love so much about The Void is that this really intense synthy soundtrack that really just burrows into you.
I will say, you know what, Hockey, go ahead and if you have an opportunity, watch The Keep, just under the understanding that it's you're going to say to yourself while watching it, wow, I can think of a million ways this could have been better.
You know, I can almost see that just from the trailer too.
But there are some excellent visuals in it, and some Michael Mann's direction has some very cool sequences, and the world building is compelling, and the fact that it's about a bunch of Nazis who unwittingly awaken a ancient Hebrew demon-like character that's really fascinating. And I mean, of course, the soundtrack, as I mentioned. Also, read up on the production history, because I don't blame Michael Mann for the failure of the film. The movie had one of the most troubled productions that it reads like a book. It could be a documentary.
Yeah, I wrote that down as one to watch. I've got a list that will take priority, but because I still have to see. Just full disclosure, I still have to see a Field in England, like you recommended to me.
Yes,
and I still have to see something called The Devil's Candy.
Okay,
but I'll add those to my list for sure.
And there's obviously no time restraint on seeing it. But The Void. So So the Void begins with a deputy police officer who
Go ahead.
finds this drug addict, crazy person just crawling down the road, and he takes him to this hospital. And at the hospital, some weird shit starts to happen. Most notably when these cultists start surrounding the building, and this weird, crazy body horror monster starts eating people or something.
Yeah.
What the fuck does he do? Does he eat them, or does he just kind of grab them and, I don't know, have his way with them?
Are you talking about the fucking giant thing?
Yeah, the thing that looks like the poison zombies from Half-Life 2.
It eats people, doesn't it? Wasn't there a part where it peeled somebody's skull cap off?
Yeah, there's a lot of peeling of skin in this.
It does monster shit. You know what? Let's just come out and say it. This movie's kind of a fucking mess.
It is, and
a compelling mess for sure.
yes, I have to say I enjoyed watching the movie. I just don't feel like I got much out of it because full disclosure on that, it didn't really have a point.
The movie constantly feels like, again, going back to the keep, apparently, it constantly feels like it's building something that it never ends up culminating at.
Right.
It's a bunch of really awesome practical effects and gore and just cool shit and interesting ideas that mostly, even without seeing many of the movies it references, feels like a sizzle reel of references and spooks that never cohere into an actual movie with a coherent structure.
Exactly. This is a kind of movie for the Fangoria crowd. If you are really into practical effects, totally give this a look. It's got a ton of really great ones. It really feels like a throwback to like 70s and 80s horror filmmaking in a lot of ways. There's some definite giallo influences. But here's the thing. When I mentioned Lucio Fulci, one thing that's worth noting, Fulci also had this problem of his movies not really ultimately making a whole fucking lot of sense. The only reason why I give him more credit over this is he did it first, god damn it.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, and actually a lot of Italian filmmakers of that era, like Argento and even Mario Bava, none of their movies, not all of them made that much sense. So, but Fulci kind of was the culmination of that, I would argue. The Beyond, for instance, is a great example.
Yeah, I want to see that.
Highly recommended. Don't expect it to make a lot of sense or for scenes to feel that well connected. But goddamn, is it so full of amazing visual horror, and the ending scene is, I guess this is a spoiler for The Void. They basically ripped the ending scene off for The Void completely. It is.
I googled the Void, and I'm sorry.
Did you see like a screenshot for the Beyond's final scene?
Yeah, it's like really similar.
But. I will say, if you're going to steal from someone, steal from the best, right?
Sure, yeah, and I did get a little high for this one, so that's partially fed into some of the body horror stuff. So the first time you see the creature, this camera, one of the creepiest scenes so far in the film, it happens in the first few minutes, is this nurse is stabbing somebody in the face while she's possessed or something. She turns around, and she's like, "This isn't my face," and she reaches up and starts to sniff off pieces of her face.
Yeah.
And then you see her dead later, and then the tentacle thing starts coming out of her mouth, flapping around, very similar to the iconic sequence of The Thing, where the defibrillator chest mouth thing. And it's kind of like my response to The Evil Within, where I saw that and I was like, fuck that. And I had the same reaction to another creature later on in the film. But one of my favorite scenes in The Void is when the antagonist is talking, and he's just talking, and his face is in shadow. And the lighting of the film oftentimes works as a disadvantage to the great practical effects, but here it was really effective.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking and he's like, okay, this guy's totally fucked up, right? And he turns around and his face is missing. And that was an awesome gore effect. But again, in a later scene, there's the lady that has the tentacles that stretch across the entire room, and the cop starts chopping him up with his axe, and the scenes run together in a really interesting way that kind of hurts the pacing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it tries to straddle the line between reality and a dreamlike state, a nightmare state. But the transition between those two states of mind doesn't ever feel like it. It feels like I had to figure it out myself, and not that the movie is helping me along with it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I like being able to figure it out, but the movie was like, here's the movie. You figure out what's going on, and I want a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I think The Void ultimately is a it's a failure in story structure. I think in characters, sometimes the characters break down out of just really not necessarily the best scripting. But from a visual standpoint, there's stuff to see, and there just aren't that many horror movies out there that are doing effects the way that they do it here. So I give it a mild passing score.
I do too. I don't want to come out and be like, this is a fantastic Fangoria style practical effect horror film. It's not, but it's interesting. It's got some sweet practical effects, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
The characters are not
music,
very
too.
likable. The music is terrific.
Mm-hmm.
It just ends up being barely unsatisfying.
That's a great blurb for the DVD cover. Barely
unsatisfying.
All right, so we'll go ahead and move on from this point. We actually just hit the 10-minute mark, so I was able to stop it before it went off. Neil Stryker and the Tyrant of Time.
All right, so this movie is really fucking funny, and it is a total... I don't want to say a mess like The Void was. They're messes in different ways. You put it really well in that there's probably nothing cut from this movie.
Yes, this is a perfect, especially since this is kind of, I believe this is the guy's first actual feature film, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, and this film was apparently 10 years in the making, to the point where you can actually see some characters gain and lose weight from shot to shot.
Yes.
And, it's an ultra low budget sci-fi action comedy, and it tells the story of a secret agent named Neil Stryker who saves the world from the clutches of, quote, the mad scientist, who is played by the same actor who plays Neil Stryker, who is also the director of the film, if I'm not mistaken.
You're not mistaken.
Yeah. Rob Taylor. So this is,
yeah.
He cast himself, he used all of his buffalo here.
So yeah, this is one of those movies that is obviously and intentionally made on a very low budget, where the line readings are deliberately horrible and the special effects even more so.
Which can be funny if handled correctly. It takes a special kind of balance, and I would say in most of the comedic scenes, that balance is met. There are some notable exceptions of cringeworthy moments that could easily have been excised, but the main thing is the movie. What I enjoy about it is the way it very unsubtly parodies the classic kind of serialized sci-fi adventure like comic booky stories, while at the same time kind of creating its own little mythos within itself. A goofy one, and one that's not particularly consistent, but I legitimately would, if he's able to tighten up his direction and his editing a little bit next time around, I would not mind a follow-up to this.
I'd be curious to know how this. I say this probably more often than I should, but I'd be curious to see this structured as like a 5-part miniseries.
And in fact, a web series would have been a release, a method of releasing something like this, because this type of humor is hard to take in large doses.
Yes.
And I watched it all in one sitting, and by the end of it, I was having trouble holding my concentration just because it does wear you down.
Yeah, towards the end, it was starting to lose me.
Mostly because it starts focusing a little bit more on story and a little bit less on gags.
Yeah, which was really interesting.
And this is one problem with this movie is pacing, because I forget exactly how long the movie is. Let's see, I have it pulled up.
Hour and
37 minutes.
Okay, I was gonna say 42.
Yeah, there's no reason this movie needed to be any more than like 80 minutes. I think you could easily have cut out as much as there's this wonderful sequence involving these goblins that is it's goofy as hell. It's completely out of tone with the rest of the story, though. It has nothing to do with the plot whatsoever.
Though there is a pretty funny scene to tie into that at the very end.
Yeah, I guess to an extent, but it's one of those things where if you had cut it from the movie would have benefited from it, even though it's a great sequence. And as a director, it's understandable, and I'm very forgiving with a first-time filmmaker in particular when it comes to not knowing when to make the proper cuts, in every place. But what a great director will do is they will realize that even though I love this sequence, it simply does not work with the pacing of the story, and it makes the rest of the film inferior by its addition, even though it's a great scene individually.
It's one of the funniest scenes in the movie.
It is, absolutely. But it completely brings the film to a halt.
Yes.
When that sequence is over, you're like, oh, okay, so we're back to this other storyline.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have I have a love-hate relationship with that scene, because I'm so happy that they put it in there because I got to experience it. But I do, like you said, I do almost wish that would have been like a different scene that was separate, like as a bonus feature or something, or just
as like a DVD feature, or even a short, like a short subject or something. I think it would have been very interesting. And
one of the lines, I think that's when I sold you on the movie, is like it has one of the funniest riffs on time travel I've ever seen. And I'll tell you what that scene was, and you probably know what it is they get to this rift, or if they step through it, they see themselves in like 30 years.
Yeah.
So Stryker steps through, he's an old man. The German guy steps through, he's an old man. The last guy stepped through, he turns into a skeleton and collapses to the ground.
Right, strongly inferring that he's long since been dead. And
right.
Although they do proceed to actually kill off the characters who supposedly were going to survive for the next 30 years. So
right.
That's a little bit out of pace, but it was a great little individual moment. Again, like I said, it doesn't make sense within the context of the story it's telling, but it's funny.
And nothing does. Like, again, one of the core points of my review that I'm writing for it is that this movie is fucking stupid as shit. But
unabashedly,
and I say this in my verdict blurb, where it says, I say Neil Stryker has a very specific flavor of dumb, but not everyone will like how it tastes.
Yes.
I'm going to go on and say, like, but if this is your kind of thing, you are going to love this.
Yeah, I would say, especially in your case, Hawk, you're the kind of person who loves movies like, what is it, Helen Keller versus the Night Wolves?
Yeah.
If you like movies like that, if that's your bread and butter, then you know what, you absolutely should give this a look.
Yeah, like what was some of the other stuff that I laughed at? Oh, Neil Stryker, or I don't know if it's Rob Taylor or Neil Stryker, like one or both of them has a very obvious kind of, I don't want to say a lisp, but he has some kind of speech impediment.
I think it's Rob Taylor because both characters he plays, the mad scientist and Neil Stryker, have a lisp.
Well,
So
the reason I'm mentioning this is that I'm not sure if that's just how the actor talks or if that's just another joke like, hey, look, these two fucking guys are played by the same person. Like if that's just like another joke. And that's one of the pros slash cons of the movie is that it's so in tune with its humor that you're never I say never. There are times where you're not quite sure if they're actually in on the joke.
yes, and that can be problematic in parody if you feel like something was bad for the sake of was bad unintentionally sometimes. But yeah, well, either way, I think.
At the same time, though, if you have an appetite for this type of movie, it doesn't always matter. That's why I say it's a pro slash con because it doesn't always matter if they're in on the joke or not because it's still funny.
Yeah, this is also something that should satisfy fans of genre exercise parodies. Like if you were someone who watched the web series Italian Spider-Man, for instance, this will scratch that itch a little bit too in terms of the fact that it's parodying a genre by being as dumb as you can possibly be. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is an enjoyable movie, and unfortunately, with the production values it has, it is going to survive only in video on demand, I think.
Yeah, it's not going to get a theatrical release, but I hope that it finds a good audience in VOD because there are some great gags. Like he's standing on the roof arguing with his wife, and then his wife gets struck by lightning, and that's just it. She's dead.
Right, and the kid's like, "When's mommy coming back?" And he just says, "She's not. She's dead."
Yeah, she's like, "She's dead." And he's like, "I killed her." Just kidding. I didn't kill her, but she is dead.
Now, it's worth noting this film does feature two celebrities in air quotes. Former, I would say. I would put them hard on the Hollywood C list. We were talking about the lists the other week. David Ogden Stiers, who plays the Admiral, and Walter Koenig, who plays the future version of one of the characters. And, we can wrap this up pretty quick here. First of all, I called this shit. Like, when I was talking to Hawk the other day, I was like, they're probably going to be in, like, one scene a piece, maybe two. Yeah.
And they are.
They are. And it clearly has... I will say, David Ogden Stiers does get himself, like, covered in fake blood, and I gotta laud him, for coming onto the set of such a, an amateurish kind of production, and just saying, you know what, I'm gonna do what I do. I'm an actor. I'm gonna, he let himself be led. I like that.
One last thing I wanted to ask you: were there any of the movies? This made my beer 2. And beer 3 I might do it, but this is gonna definitely hover between 2 and 3 beers for me.
I think it's easily a 3. I'd probably go 4 personally, but that's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, I had so much fun with it. It's easy to overlook some of that stuff. Like even Zach was like, when I requested the screener, he's like, it looks like it's right up your alley, but I think they may be promising a bit too much. And I didn't say it, but I was like, I know exactly what this movie is going to be, and I know I'm going to fucking love it too. Okay. Beer 2, I said that the movie kind of has a tendency to gorge itself on non sequiturs. Mm-hmm. Were there any that you thought were particularly funny?
The non sequiturs? Mm-hmm. Let's see.
I'll say mine while you're thinking about it. Mine was the one where, for some reason, his ship decides to spit out a nuclear missile, and he just like tosses it out the door and flies away. And you get this pan shot of a fucking huge mushroom cloud in the middle of the wilderness, and then that's just all they talk about. I mean, that's all they leave it at that.
Yeah, that's certainly a good example. I would say one moment in particular that I can call up is there's the sequence when he shows up and the mad scientist is just like taking he's in a jacuzzi for no reason. And
that was funny.
the sequence is it's the classical, when the good guy confronts the bad guy sequence in a movie where the bad guy's taking everything very lightly, and I've got you cornered, but the way it's played out is just ridiculous, and this is
Here,
a
have a
movie.
Cosmo.
Exactly, the
Oh,
Cosmo.
wow, yours is better than mine.
Yes, to the point where I actually this. That a scene is effective. A scene involving food is effective when it makes you immediately think, you know what? I haven't had one of those for a long time. I'm curious. So next chance I get to order a Cosmo, I think I will, because to be honest, I don't even know if I've ever actually had one. So
I don't know if I've had one either.
I know that it's like a cranberry juice vodka cocktail, and that's vodka and cranberry itself is a pretty good mix. So
I don't do hard liquor anymore. So
well, they say liquor is quicker. So
I thought
anyway,
liquor is sicker.
liquor makes you sicker. I thought it was. I thought it was.
Beer before liquor, never sicker. Liquor before beer, you're in the clear. Which is all totally subjective based on how much of each you're having. I mean, you can't have an entire handle of liquor and then have a few beers and be in the clear, as it were.
So the quote that I actually had to look up my quote just to make sure I got it right, but it's candy is dandy, but liquor is quicker.
That's stupid.
Okay.
That doesn't make any sense. Wait, doesn't mean candy's dandy, but liquor is quicker? Like, does candy get you drunk?
It's okay. It's written by an American poet named Ogden Nash.
Oh, I know him.
Yeah, and
I like him too.
Well, I guess you don't like him enough.
I don't like one of the things he did. You know what? You just talked about a Werner Herzog movie you didn't like. So, fuck you.
Yeah, it just says here that, light verse was his specialty, humorous poetry, things like that. But, so candy is dandy, but liquor is quicker. Yeah, it says here poetics. We're not going to go into a whole discussion about him.
Okay, that's fine. So,
anyway,
that's all I have to say on Neil Stryker and the Tyrant of Time.
Speaking of movies that we don't have a whole lot to say about, another release from this recent weekend, Gifted.
I'm really interested in how Marvel plans to continue their cinematic universe now that Captain America is branching off into more suburban situations.
Yeah. So the plot of this film is Captain America has adopted the 7-year-old daughter of his sister, and his sister happens to be a math genius.
So did she die in World War II also, or was it the present day?
All right, I'd like to continue this riff, but I have no direction to take it in. I'm not a trained improv comedian, so I will say that basically Chris Evans, who played Captain America, as those should know, the movie begins at this point where he has enrolled his 7-year-old adoptive daughter, although not officially adopted, but the fact is she's been living with him for 7 years.
I think by proxy, if a kid lives with you for that long, then it's automatically a thing.
Well, this movie deals with the custody battle. So anyway, what ends up happening is he's enrolled her in school, and he's determined to make things work for her in public school, even though she has shown incredible gifts with mathematics to an almost superhuman degree. And she's basically years ahead in math over anyone her age. And it makes sense in many ways because her biological mother, who's Chris Evans' sister, who died 7 years before the events of this film, she was a math genius too. And on her first day in school, Mary is her name, the girl, makes an impression on her teacher in that she shows off her intelligence, but also the fact that she is so above her classmates that she's kind of a terror. She's kind of a terror amongst the students. They all kind of hate her, and the teacher doesn't like her that much because she's kind of a douche.
Okay, I saw that in the trailer,
which is pretty common amongst people with high IQ, gifted IQs, because they are bored. They're sitting in class and realize that what everyone else is learning is stuff that they already know, and it makes them feel condescended to, and it results in them becoming kind of assholes.
Now, this is that actress's debut performance, right?
Well, the actress McKenna Grace.
Right.
Yes, she has appeared in some other things before. Actually, her filmography goes all the way back to 2012. But she's been in television and movies. She was a voice in the Angry Birds movie. She was in Independence Day Resurgence. She was in, a movie called Suburban Gothic. She was in Mr. Church.
Who the fuck is this girl's agent? Fire him!
Holy shit! Yeah, that's the thing. She totally was. I remember that. It was a small role, but she was totally in it.
What role was that? I've kind of blocked out entire chunks of that movie because I hated it so much.
Her character's name is Izzy. She's the Izzy is the girl.
The younger version of fucking Britt Robertson who hated all the cooking.
No, what's her name? The main character is Charlie. Yeah, who's the girl at the beginning of the movie, and she becomes older. When she has a baby, her baby is McKenna Grace.
I hate Mr. Church so much.
So anyway, so Gifted. What happens is her teacher, played by Jenny Slate, has Mary brought before the principal, and the principal is immediately taken with Mary's intelligence and brings Chris Evans in to have a talk and explain that she needs to be in a private school under special tutelage because of her gifts. And Chris Evans looks at the principal and says, "You know what? No." And at first you're like, what the fuck? I mean, clearly she's useless in public school. But he has a reason behind it. And the reason turns out to be, and I'm going to go ahead and, first of all, are you going to see this movie anytime soon?
Nope.
All right, no, I'm gonna go ahead and spoil the fuck out of it. So if you want to see Gifted at this point, stop watch or listen.
If you want to see Gifted, see something else.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is the reason why he doesn't want Mary to go into a private school is because he grew up with his sister, who was a math genius too, and their mother, who was also a bit of a math genius, but she took the sister under her personal tutelage and basically forced upon her this regimen of education in a very, very wicked stepmothery kind of way that put her into, the depths of depression, to the point where she, right as it seemed like she was at the cusp of solving this massive math problem that is one of the Millennium Problems, which is one of a few different math problems that are like, if you win the Millennium Prize, it's kind of like the math version of like a Nobel Prize. I know they have a Nobel Prize for mathematics, but you get $1 million for it.
So have they, in regards to the specific problem, have they objectively solved that problem?
In real life, no.
Okay.
And it's called the Navier-Stokes problem, apparently.
Oh, I know that one. Yeah, okay. Not the solution, but I know the problem.
Right. Well, yeah, shit. If you knew the solution, you'd be $1 million.
I'd be sitting on $1 million. I mean, I just haven't revealed it yet. But no, yeah. I'm not smart enough to figure out that fucking thing.
But for those who don't know it, here, I'll go ahead and read what the Navier-Stokes problem is. Prove or give a counterexample of the following statement. In three space dimensions and time, given an initial velocity field, there exists a vector velocity and scalar pressure field, which are both smooth and globally defined, that solve the Navier-Stokes equations.
No, keep going.
No, seriously, that's all it says here. That's what the problem statement is.
Link me that later because I want to look at it again.
Yeah, there are a series of equations that you have to look. If I went into that, we would be here all day.
Yeah, that's something that has like the giant cursive F and the fucking different lines and 5,000 multiplication signs and shit like that, right?
Yeah, let me put it this way. Math was not my strong suit. My brother got all the math genes in the family. He's the one who teaches that shit. Man, I wish he was a good teacher of math when I was in school. God damn it. Anyway, so without going into too much personal elements, Gifted. So what ends up happening is the grandma, who's ever since the sister committed suicide, has been basically absent. When word gets out that this daughter is equally gifted, she shows up and says, I want to take custody of the girl because she needs to, much like the sister, she needs to be taught math and solve this problem and become a changer, a game changer in the world of mathematics. And Chris Evans, on the other hand, takes the position of, my sister didn't have a life and it killed her. And I want Mary to have a life of her own, and he believes that his sister would have wanted the same. So I'll go ahead and end my. I'll go ahead and give away the final part of Gifted, just because to me the only thing that this movie was really worth seeing, because it's got some solid performances. Jenny Slate's a little wasted in it, but otherwise it's a pretty solid drama. Just not, it's nothing to write home about. But it has the single most savage burn moment I've seen in movies in recent memory. And that was towards the very end. And again, spoilers for those who actually do care. Where the grandma's confronting Chris Evans one last time and saying, and trying to take her away. And Chris Evans shows up with this binder. And the binder says on it that it is a comprehensive proof of this equation, of this problem, or whatever you call it. And the grandma is just completely baffled by this. She's like, well, surely she would have told me about this if she had solved it before her death. This was all we ever talked about. To which Chris Evans said, she wanted to be published posthumously. And the grandma says, very, standoffishly, she's been dead for 7 years. And Chris Evans gives her a look and says, she didn't mean her death.
Captain America with the fucking burns.
I almost... in the theater, I almost just went, oh! Thankfully, one guy beat me to the punch. There was some dude in the back of the theater who was just like, oh, shit.
Did Chris Evans and the daughter inherit the $1 million from solving that?
Well, what ends up happening is Chris Evans basically gives the binder with the proof to the grandma and says, "Here, let me keep Mary and let me have Mary, keep Mary in my custody, and he ends up does agreeing to having her sent to private school, but he still keeps custody of her, and she's still living with him. And he gives her the binder and the proof and says, you're going to spend the next few years defending this proof, and there's no one more equipped to do it than you. And this was something you worked your entire life for with my sister, so go ahead and do this."
That is such a Captain America thing to do.
Exactly. It's kind of a win-win situation. He gets to keep the kid. I think he ultimately made the decision that while his sister did want the grandma to fucking die before it was published, which is a cruel movement, he probably figured that between that and giving Mary a life that she would actually want to lead, It maybe waiting until the death of the grandma wasn't necessarily the it while it's not fulfilling someone's deathbed wish, it's it's a pretty cynical fucking wish to have, and she did commit suicide.
It's not very diplomatic, yeah.
No, yeah. But talk about fucking telling someone "fuck you" from the grave.
Yeah.
I solved this problem that you wanted me to solve, and not only are you not going, not only did I solve it and kill myself, but you're not going to live to find out that I solved it.
Right.
Can you imagine that conversation up in heaven? Well, I guess she probably wasn't expecting to meet her in heaven. So, anyway, yeah, Gifted's it's an okay movie. It's one of those movies that if I didn't have to write the actual review of the movie, I didn't even mention Octavia Spencer's in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, she's fine, I guess, right?
She's a great actress, and she's solid in this movie, but her character is ultimately not that important to the plot.
The director Mark Webb strikes me, and no offense to him, he strikes me less as a director of actors and more of a director occasionally gifted with great actors.
This is a movie that relies on its actors to work out. I will say that.
I'm sure they're all good actors, but if I look at some of his other movies, they're not all great actors. They're not all great performances. Like Andrew Garfield in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, a fantastic performance. Mm-hmm. Paul Giamatti, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw Amazing Spider-Man 2, right?
Yeah, I saw it.
You remember Paul Giamatti's role in that, right?
Yeah, he was he made he was the Rhino. I think.
He was the Rhino with a fuck off terrible Russian accent.
But Giamatti, he worked with it.
He did, and that's what I'm saying. It's like Webb gets good actors, even if he's not a great actor's director.
I guess.
And I hope I never meet him because that's a really mean thing I just said.
The first time you ever try out for a movie, that'll be what happens.
It's me, Mark Webb.
So we're gonna end the episode by setting up what's going to be kind of a series of movie reviews that we're going to be doing between today and the next week, which is reviews of a couple of films from Ben Wheatley in preparation for his new release, Free Fire.
Yeah. So I talked to you candidly about I had been assigned to review Free Fire, and you gave me some homework to watch a couple of his previous films. Now I've seen Kill List. Have you seen that?
You know what? I actually have not, and that's on my. I'm planning on seeing that movie in the next couple of days. So.
Yeah, it gets pretty fucked in the last half, but like in not really a weird way, but in a genuinely horrifying way. There's a plot twist in that movie that just cuts right through you, in more ways than one, I suppose, in hindsight. But anyway, you'll understand when you see it. You assigned me to watch High Rise and A Field in England.
Yes, and we'll be talking A Field in England next week.
Yep, I started with High Rise. I'm crossing that off my list right now. Weird movie.
So it's based on a novel of the same name by writer J.G. Ballard. And the movie, the book was written in the 70s, and it takes place in a 70s vision of the future.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the beginning. The primary conceit of High Rise is going to remind some people of some elements of it is going to remind people of Snowpiercer, though this is not an action movie. It's very important to note. In that the concept of High Rise is a gigantic luxury tower block has been set up that has all of the things you would want, all the conveniences within one building, and it allows its residents to basically, if they want, they can do everything from inside of this building. And what's fascinating about it is it's a high-rise built for all levels of social strata, and it's organized that way in that the higher-ups, the wealthy members of society, live on the higher floors, and the poorest of society live on the lower floors, and everyone else is in the middle.
Yeah, and so Tom Hiddleston is the main character. He's like a psychiatrist.
A brain surgeon.
A brain surgeon, thank you. And this movie is one that you really, I kind of need to rewatch it. You really got to pay attention to it because there's a lot going on. The cultural commentary is not even close to being as on the nose as some other films of the same vein. It kind of just presents itself as a narrative and lets things unravel on their own.
Unravel's the word for it. This is a movie that is. I'm not going to say that it's a fully effective movie, but the imagery that it presents and the concepts that it explores, very fascinating. What the movie begins with, the very opening scene, is Tom Hiddleston in a tower block that appears to have been bombed out, killing a dog and eating it on a spit roast.
Yeah.
And then it flashes back 3 months previous. Yeah,
and as the movie goes on, it kind of begs the question, why isn't anybody leaving? So the high rise is this kind of terrifying, self-contained melting pot of different cultures and economic means. I don't really know what word I'm looking for. But there's so many different people here, and they all have their own opinions of the place and their own agendas, and it kind of dissolves into something kind of awful as they illustrate in the opening scene.
Yes, very much. Basically, what you get is because of everything that this high-rise produces provides for its people, there is less and less reason for them to leave, to the point where many become completely isolated within their own area of the building and don't even they don't see a reason to leave it anymore.
Well, almost every floor has its own supermarket.
Mm-hmm.
One of my criticisms of the movie that I told you when I watched it is that I liked how trippy and visual and weird it was, but there was never really any reason for it to be that way.
Which I can see your point to an extent, except that I really like the visual looks of it, and I think it really created this otherworldly feel, which
I do too. It's just that the movie never establishes any hallucinogenic or otherworldly origin for these visuals.
Mm-hmm.
So for something like The Evil Within, like, for example, a couple weeks ago, I liked some of the trippy visuals because the movie was slowly building up this nightmarish state until the climax where it's just totally fucked. And then in here, it's like, oh, there's a scene where a guy gets murdered and a little kid watches through kaleidoscope, so you see a lot of mirror images of it. It's like, I don't...
Mm-hmm.
Why? I mean, I liked how it was, but I couldn't really make the connection between what's going on and why it's going on visually as it's presented to us. Does that make sense? I mean, I love the visuals. I thought it was a beautifully made film and so cool to look at. But
well, and just watching as the visual, like the art design changes over time, as Law and Order just dissolves within the building. Infrastructure starts to fail, and food starts becoming scarce, and full-out class warfare begins. It's worth noting this movie features besides Tom Hiddleston, there's a few very solid performances. Jeremy Irons as Anthony Royal, who is the architect of the building, and ostensibly the you would say the landlord, but also kind of the brains behind it. He much like the engineer in Snowpiercer.
Right.
He is basically this character who he's more visible because he's in a great deal of the movie as opposed to just the final sequence, but he serves as the principal character who created this world as what it is, and he's using it essentially he built it in this way with this idealistic view, without fully understanding how social structures just. I would argue one of the biggest pieces of commentary in this is the mere fact that the wealthy live on top of the poor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is a very basic comment on society. You know, they're living off the backs of the poor, and the people who first see problems are the poor, because they, you know, the power outages begin in lower levels, and food becomes scarce on lower levels first. And over time, you watch as, you know, the wealthy start leaving the leaving the upper levels less and less, and it's, you know, it's all about class warfare, really. Another solid performance in this is Luke Evans.
Yes, I talked to you about that, and I think Luke Evans, he you mentioned I mentioned he had a great performance, and then you mentioned, like, yeah, that's why I have faith in his talent, besides all these shitty movies he keeps starring in.
Which is, it's unfortunate. He does apparently, you know, I mean, he's in a lot of movies that just aren't what they could have been.
But I mean, the ones that come to mind immediately for me are Fast and Furious 6, which he did what he had to do in that movie. But the Fast and Furious franchise is not about the villains. He was in Beauty and the Beast. His performance as Gaston, which of course postdates High Rise, was fantastic. Probably the best part of the movie. And what else was he in?
Luke Evans?
I forgot. But while I'm looking this up, his performance in High Rise is the highlight of the movie, obviously. I mean, not obviously, but in my opinion.
He is this film's... Yeah, Luke Evans is this film's introduction to sort of the lower class, and his character ingratiates himself to Tom Hiddleston and essentially begins this weird friendship that is really more threatening than anything.
Yeah, he's not someone you want to be friends with.
Yeah, it's very predatory. And you can tell that he's seeking out Hiddleston's friendship because he knows that just being a friend with someone who's middle class will make him appear better by example. And that's not someone you want to ingratiate yourself with as much.
So he was in some other stuff that kind of...
Like, wasn't he in Dracula Untold or something?
He was in Dracula Untold, and you know what? It is worth noting that his performance in Dracula Untold is by far the least of that movie's problems. he goes for it. I mean, he tries to play his character in that. He was in The Raven. He was in Immortals, another movie which his performance was the least of that movie's problems. So yeah, I mean, it's worth, as you said, he's a talented actor who is in some bad movies. He's also in the Hobbit movies. He was in the shitty Paul W.S. Anderson Three Musketeers. Did you see that movie?
I did not, and I have no interest.
It's the villain is played by Orlando Bloom, and it's kind of worth watching him ham it up just for that. Just to see the whole movie, it's worth it.
Where has he gone?
Orlando Bloom?
Yeah.
Apparently, he's in the next Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
Well, of course, yeah, I guess they dug him up for that.
And he was in the Hobbit movies also.
Right, but like outside of those, well-known franchises, has he been in anything?
I guess he was in a 2014 version of Romeo and Juliet, directed by Don Roy King.
Oh God, was that what I think it is? Was that the Romeo and Juliet that was with? No, it wasn't. It's a completely different movie.
No, it was a Broadway play. What the fuck?
Why is that in a filmography?
It was broadcast. It was one of those stupid
live
Fathom Live events things. Come watch Broadway in your movie theater for one night only.
And he was also in another movie that's named after a movie, but isn't the movie you think it is. A movie called Zulu, which is not to be confused with the Zulu that is actually like well known. uh,
Here's the synopsis on his Zulu. Policemen Ali Sokela and Brian Epkeen investigate the brutal murder of a young white woman, apparently provoked by the availability of a new illegal drug and somehow connected to the disappearance of black street children. So
this has nothing to do with the movie Zulu from the 1960s.
No.
And also, by the way, Orlando Bloom and Forrest Whitaker are the stars. So, I wonder if this movie's any good. Pulls up Rotten Tomatoes.
Probably not.
And not even a tomatometer score.
It's got a 6.7 out of 14,600 reviews on IMDb.
Which, that's kind of middling, honestly.
Yes, because I do feel like IMDb... It's... How do I want to phrase this?
IMDb.
Movies get lower and higher scores than they should on that site.
Yes.
The not very good ones get like 2 out of 10. The decent ones get 8 out of 10. The amazing ones get 10 out of 10, and then everything else is in between.
Mm-hmm. Well, and some movies that get 10 out of 10 are... Well, yeah, I won't get into that. Other than IMDb scores are not where you go for actual like quality advice on a movie.
I just want to say that if IMDb was going to get rid of one thing, it should have been the rating system and not the forums.
Well, the IMDb forums were kind of a hot mess too.
They were, but they occasionally were interesting. But usually it was like, "Oh, fuck you," and "You're stupid," and "I disagree with you." But
yeah, much like the YouTube. The only thing the forums were good for, I would say, really, is if you watched a movie that you didn't quite understand, maybe getting some other ideas as to what the movie might have been trying to say, and helping to guide you towards figuring out, if it was you who missed something or if the movie itself was just incomprehensible.
Right, and sometimes you get people to be like, "Oh yeah, I saw it as this and that," and other times people be like, "Well, you're fucking stupid for not figuring this movie out."
Right.
But I would say it's in the same vein that the rating system on IMDb, the stars, is basically just a passive aggressive version of the forums. It's like, "Oh, a bunch of people rated this high before it came out. Well, I'm going to give it a 0 just to fuck those people."
Not to mention the fact that most people don't know how to rate things. Amazon has the same problem where 5 stars is what everyone gives something like right off the bat, like if they liked it. Or most people. Very few people will actually think, critically about it and say, is this really... Because 5 stars is saying this is the best thing ever.
Right.
And, none of the movies we've talked about today would get 5 stars from me. In fact, I don't think anything that we've talked about today would even get 4 stars from me if I was giving a star rating. Maybe not even 3. Okay. I would say 3 is probably as far as I would pull any of them.
Neil Stryker would be a 3 or a 4. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I really did.
All right, fair enough.
I liked how Netflix went to the thumbs up and thumbs down instead of stars.
Yes, I will say that was, I think, a good decision.
It's either just not for me or it is for me, and that's all it takes.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, with that said, next week we've got a busy week coming. Some interesting movie releases, and we'll get into that. We'll get into that then. I think the main thing that I'm looking forward to is Free Fire.
Yep, me too.
Because it's really the first Ben Wheatley movie to get a significant release. But also other movies this weekend: Born in China, the new Disney documentary; Phoenix Forgotten, found footage movie; The Promise, movie about the genocide in Armenia. Unforgettable, a movie so unforgettable that I can't remember what it's about.
That's the Rosario Dawson and Katherine Heigl erotic thriller. They don't
Oh,
bang each other; they just fight at the end of the movie. Apparently,
oh, okay. Well, that says enough. And the Lost City of Z, which is that is that's the Lost City of Z.
which unfortunately stars Charlie Hunnam and Robert Pattinson and Sienna Miller.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like the trifecta of suck.
Okay, I will defend Robert Pattinson for a moment here. Wow, that's me saying that.
Yeah, you said it. You said it.
I'm going to, because The Rover. He was good in The Rover.
He was good in The Rover, but he was also bad in 4 of the Twilight movies. That's like a 25% success rate.
And you know
Not
what?
even that, 20%.
You know what? That's one good movie, but he was good in it. So he is capable of being in a good movie.
That's fair. He was also fine in Cosmopolis, which is a messy ass movie, but he was fine in it.
All right.
You saw it, right?
I did not.
Okay.
So on that bombshell, we'll see you next week.